So, back in January of 1988, Dragon Magazine, specifically issue number 129, released a series of monsters in their series called The Dragon's Bestiary. These monsters are actually creatures that exist in the para-elemental plane of ice. Now, this article was written by Dean Shomshak. He's actually written quite a few articles, and he went on to assist with writing multiple expansions for the Hero Games Champion system. Now, Dean actually writes up 4 creatures, the Shiverbug, the Iceland, the Snow Fury, and the Frigid Arch, which I have not been able to find in any other edition of the game. So these may or may not be actual creatures, but I did find it interesting that this guy created these monsters along with a little bit of description of each of them for this para-elemental plane. First up is going to be the creature called the Shiverbug. This creature has an armor class of 5. It moves at 9 inches. It has 2 hit dice. No treasure of any kind. It has up to 4 attacks. 3 of them which are a claw and 1's a bite. Damage for the attacks is 1 through 3 for claw attacks and 1 through 4 for the bite attack. They're not exactly the smartest creatures around, and size-wise, they're only 2 to 3 feet in diameter and 1 to 1.5 feet tall. For the descriptors, Dean has put in here that Shiverbugs are very minor elementals from the plane of ice. Their flattened bodies are hexagons with alternating long and short sides, with a long leg extending in a trifurcate, Trifurcate, I don't know how to say that, trifurcate claw at each vertex, 6 in all. Between and above each pair of legs on the 3 short sides of the body is a 2-foot-long arm ending in 3 fingered nippers. In the middle of each long side is a trifurcate beak with a pair of eyes. Shiverbugs are composed entirely of cloudy white ice, except for their eyes, which are of glittering clear ice. In each round of combat, Shiverbugs have a single biting attack and up to 3 pincer attacks. They can only use 2 of their pincers on a single target, so unless there are 2 or more properly placed opponents near a Shiverbug, it only gets 2 nipper attacks. If a bite attack succeeds, the Shiverbug also injects a frigid venom into the victim. The victim must make a save versus poison or immediately start shivering from the extreme cold. This effect is dexterity drops 1 to 3 points, and they have -1 on their 2 hit rolls. The effects of this frigid venom last for 1 turn, not a round, an entire turn. Being used to extreme cold, Shiverbugs are immune to all cold-related attacks. Being inorganic and chemically inert, they are not affected by chemical attacks such as acid, alkali, poison, or even ghoul paralysis. Fire and intense heat, however, do double damage against these creatures. Like many of the lesser elementals, Shiverbugs do not look for trouble, but they are easily annoyed. For instance, stepping on one Shiverbug will rile the whole pack. This event is not as improbable as it might seem, since Shiverbugs are easy to overlook when they squat motionless in the snow and ice in which they dwell while on the prime material plane. They do not collect treasure and do not have any sort of lair. The next creature is called an Iceland. Now, Icelings have an armor class of 7, so not as high as the Shiverbug. It does have 4 hit dice, however. It doesn't have any sort of treasure and has up to 3 attacks, and each one of the attacks do 1 to 6 points of damage. Its intelligence is also low. Its size is medium size, so it's not as small as a Shiverbug. These ones are about the size of a man. Now, for the description text, it has that Icelings are lesser inhabitants of the plane of ice. Like the other minor elementals, once in a while they slip through nexus points of the prime material plane. Naturally, Icelings are usually met on or near glaciers or other icy, snowy regions. They are triradial beings, standing about as tall as a man, with 3 arms, 3 legs, and a hexagonal body. The head is also 6-sided, with 1 bright eye on each side, and it rises to a blunt pyramid-like point. Icelings are made entirely of cloudy ice. They radiate the intense cold of their home plane, but not enough to do damage at a distance. 1/3 of the 1 to 6 hit points of damage done by a stab from an Iceling's arm, however, is from the effects of intense cold on soft body tissues. Opponents who are immune to cold only take 1 to 4 hit points of damage. Icelings are immune to cold attacks themselves, as well as chemical attacks, while fire attacks do double damage to them. Icelings also have limited magical powers. Once per turn, each Iceling can create a snow cloud, which is a 20 foot by 20 foot by 20 foot zone of whirling snow lasting 4 rounds. Its effects are much like those of a stinking cloud, as those caught within are blinded and disorientated, stuck within for 2 to 5 rounds. The snow cloud's effects can last a round longer than the cloud itself, unless they save versus poison. Even those who make the save will be occupied with clearing their eyes and nose of snow for a round. Special circumstances like a visored helm or other protection may reduce or even totally negate the snow cloud's effects. Characters suffer the usual penalties for inability to see an opponent while they are in a snow cloud. Once per 3 Icelings together can create an ice storm, equal to 1 cast by a 6th level magic user. They have no other magical powers. Icelings do not collect treasure and are usually inoffensive if not disturbed. Sometimes they spontaneously throw snow clouds around other creatures. Apparently, just for the fun of it. The Snow Fury is next. The Snow Fury has an armor class of 5. It moves at 18 inches a turn, or a round. It has 6 hit dice. It has 3 attacks, each doing 2 to 5 points of damage each, which is 1d4 plus 1. It has some special attacks, including blinding and envelop, special defenses, cold affinity, weapon resistances. It's not that smart also, but the size is rated as M, medium, which is, as it says, large volume but diffuse. The description text gives it that, like the other ice paraelementals, Snow Furies occasionally slip through the nexus points to wander glaciers and snowfields. Usually they seem to be no more than snow-laden and gusts of wind. In this condition, they are harmless and probably won't be noticed. Fire enrages them, however, and on sensing a fire, they gather themselves into a denser form and rush to put out the offending fire. A Snow Fury will also attack any nearby creatures its limited intellect connects with creating the fire. High winds put Snow Furies into a manic state in which they may randomly attack other creatures. Fortunately, Snow Furies are not very persistent. Indeed, they are a bit scatterbrained. In combat, the Snow Fury continually extrudes and reabsorbs tentacles of snow and ice pellets. It can attack with 3 of these tentacles per round, each tentacle doing 2 to 5 hit points of damage from the combination of intense cold and impact by numerous sharp bits of ice. All 3 attacks can be on a single target. Opponents who are resistant to cold still take 1 to 3 hit points of damage per attack. If the Snow Fury gets a 20 on its attack roll, it manages to get snow in the opponent's eyes, blinding him for a round. A Snow Fury can also try to envelop a single human or smaller-sized opponent. To do this, the Snow Fury must make a special attack roll foregoing all other attacks in that round. The victim takes 2 to 7 hit points of damage that round and on all subsequent rounds until he escapes the Snow Fury's grip. Escape is made by making a successful attack against the Snow Fury. The victim was also blinded as if by a snow cloud, such as the one that's used in the Iceling's description. While enveloped, this special escape attack is the only attack the opponent can make that will not be penalized because of his blindness. Even after escaping, the victim is still blinded for 1 round. While holding an enveloped victim, a Snow Fury can still make 1 normal attack. Attacks upon a Snow Fury have a strong chance of also hitting an enveloped victim, who takes half the damage the weapon does. The only way to avoid this is to make a second to-hit roll against the Snow Fury, the first to hit the Snow Fury, the second to avoid hitting the trapped victim. Snow Furies are not hard to hit, but their diffuse nature means that weapons, even magic weapons, only do half damage against them. Flame-tongued swords are an obvious exception. Their icy composition means that Snow Furies take 1.5 times normal damage from all fiery attacks. On the other hand, they also regain hit points from cold-based attacks like White Dragon's Breath or Ice Storm. If cold damage is measured in dice, then 1 hit point per die of the attack is healed. Otherwise, the number of hit points healed equals 1/8 the hit point damage of the attack, with fractions rounded down. Finally, if the ambient temperature is below freezing and there is ice or snow in the vicinity, Snow Furies regenerate 1 hit point per 5 rounds. So, Snow Furies are kind of like weird frozen gelatinous cubes. Now, last but not least, we have the Frigid Arch. The Frigid Arch has an armor class of 1. It has a 9-inch movement. It has 12 hit dice, has no treasure, has up to 6 attacks with each doing 2 to 12 points of damage, so 2d6. It has some special attacks to include spells, cold aura, and summoning. It has a magical resistance. Its size is large. This creature is 6 feet tall, 8 feet in diameter, with 15-foot-long arms. And its intelligence is actually quite smart. Now onwards to the descriptive text. The Frigid Arch, these beings, known as the Frost Kings, are the most powerful of the ice paramentals. Second only to mighty Cryonax, only 6 of them exist. Although not very tall, Frigid Arch are quite broad. They are shaped like shallow, faceted pyramids about 4 feet high and 8 feet in diameter. They scuttle on 12 short, spike-shaped legs set in the underside of the body, while around the rim are a set of 6 long, slender tentacles. These many-jointed arms are surprisingly flexible considering their icy nature. At the apex of the body is the mouthless, noseless head with its ring of 6 gleaming eyes and coronet of icicles. Because this creature can see in all directions at once and has very quick reactions, it is not normally possible to surprise it. Each of the 6 tentacles can attack each round as long as there is an enemy within reach, each doing 2 to 12 hit points of damage, 1 to 6 hit points from jagged flakes of ice, and 1 to 6 from the Frigid Arch's intense cold. Anyone not immune to cold takes 2 to 5 hit points of damage from contact with a Frigid Arch, and even resist cold only reduces this to 1 to 3 hit points of damage. This, however, only applies to contact other than the Frigid Arch's attacks, of course. The cold extends at an order of 10 feet out from the main body, doing 1 to 3 hit points of damage per round to those not resistant to cold or not warmly dressed. Naturally, Frigid Arches are immune to all cold attacks. In fact, such attacks heal damage to the Frigid Arch, 1 HP healed per die of normal damage, or 1/8 normal damage if the attack damage isn't measured in dice. Fire, on the other hand, does 1.5 times the normal damage, rounded down. The Frigid Arches are only hit by weapons with a +1 or better enchantment, and they are immune to poison, gas, acid, alkali, and all other chemical attacks, paralysis, and petrification. In a pinch, Frigid Arches can meld into the snow just like a Zorn merges with stone. They regenerate 2 HP per round if the temperature is below freezing. Finally, Frigid Arches have magical powers. They freeze water by touch up to 100 square feet per round, and the ice will be 1 inch thick for every segment the Frigid Arch spends creating it, to a maximum thickness of 6 inches. Beyond that, the ice insulates the water beneath, so that further freezing is impractical. Frigid Arches are also uncannily skilled at fracturing ice with slashes of their tentacles. Fractures are not more than 10 feet long or over 1 inch deep, but the limits and uses of this skill are left up to the DM's imagination. Once per 5 rounds, Frigid Arches can use Change Temperature, which always produces colder temperatures, Snow Cloud, equal to that of an Iceland but lasts 12 rounds, Chill Metal, the reverse of Heat Metal, or Wall of Ice. 3 times per day, once per turn, they can use Cone of Cold, Ice Storm, or summon creatures from the plane of ice with an 80% success rate. The creatures it can summon are Shiverbugs, Icelings, Snow Furies, and Ice Paramentals. All spells are cast as if by a 12th level spellcaster of the appropriate type. Frigid Arches are capable of fighting with 3 tentacles while using the other 3 to cast these innate magical powers. Finally, once per week, a Frigid Arch can control weather, lowering temperatures by 30 degrees Fahrenheit within a 1-mile radius for 5 to 8 hours. If the temperature began at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or less, the temperature change and duration can both be 1.5 times greater, and the Frigid Arch can add a stiff wind to make an impressive local blizzard. Damage from exposure to such inclement weather is covered in the Wilderness Survival Guide. So, those are the 4 monsters that Dean Shomshak has created for us. I gotta say, these actually seem very similar to, like Modrons from the Plane of Law. And frankly, I don't know if these came out before or after Modrons were created. Now, if you want to know more about these creatures, they can only be found in Dragon Magazine issue number 129, which I guess you could find a physical copy if you looked really hard, but it's pretty easy to get a PDF copy on the internet. Now, I've covered most of what the article says, though I may have said it wrong a few times. In reference to the switches from inches to, feet for using a grid. For, Beckme references or Rule Cyclopedia versions, I would just add a 0 onto the inches, like a 9-inch movement becomes a 90-foot run speed, which is now a 30-foot encounter speed. Which makes sense in my mind. I was never an advanced Dungeons & Dragons player. I've played 5th edition, Pathfinder, and Beckme. And there was a brief stint with 3.5, I believe. Well, I hope this video was interesting to some of you, and hope somebody found value in it. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.